The oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear, and the oldest and strongest kind of fear is fear of the unknown. H.P. Lovecraft. Everyone fears something. Fear is built into us, and if you are really lucky, it will not consume you. There is a niggle at the back of your brain, reminding you not to hang your legs off the bed, not to look behind you as you run up the stairs at night after turning off the light. When passing a mirror, you hope that it was only your reflection you could see. That inch of movement you think you've seen from the corner of your eye. That blood-run cold feeling you get for no reason. That is fear. Welcome to a look into the unknown, where fear is always on the cards. Welcome to Paranormal Power.
It's Friday and I'm feeling spooky. Who else is feeling spooky tonight, guys? J-Mac, what's happened to your facial hair?
Well, this is a long story, but I'll tell it here because this is the ultimate platform for a long story, isn't it? It's not a long story at all. Basically, I fucked it up. I was I was just trimming my beard. I've got a brand new hair trimmer that my loving wife got me for Christmas, and I adjusted it to what I thought would be okay, and it wasn't. So I was about to just come in here and do the podcast, and I went to give the wife a kiss, and she was like, "I'm not kissing you with that on your face," right? And I said, "This has been on my face the whole time. It's just what's round about it. It's just what's round about it that's changed." She's like, "Aye, but you look like a..." Right, let's do a wee quiz here, and we'll try and work out what we think I look like, right? What is a small, round, green vegetable?
A pea.
Cabbage.
A pea. What is a female deer called?
A doe.
Where do you keep information?
Library.
Yeah, exactly. I look like a pedo library. So that's basically I thought I'd keep it tonight to keep my face in kind of in keeping with the feel of tonight's show in ye olde Edinburgh.
Terrifying.
I think I would have fit in right back then, but unfortunately now I just look like I should be locked up. But I'm rocking it for tonight and tonight only. So anybody watching tonight, this is the only time you get to see J-Mac with a full-fledged tash. So thank you for watching and good night.
King Dale Clark says, "Hi all." We have King Dale Clark saying, "Looking good, lads, once again. No homo."
Are you sure?
Reese McColgan says, "Evening, lads. Evening, Reese. See Matthew
Evening.
Man. Happy Friday, guys. Keep it spooky."
Happy
it's
Friday.
definitely spooky. Who invited Tom Adkins? It is definitely going to be spooky today because today I've been looking forward to this one since we last caught up with James Corstorphine on our episode of Paranormal. It was Lockdown Lore. Paranormal.
Oh yeah, the first
where we
iteration.
yeah, and we actually spoke about George Bloody Mackenzie, the crazy guy that done in a lot of folk way back when, and still does a lot of people in. That and much more coming up. Before we proper burst into the show, Kieran has prepared some context for this evening, so we're going to play that, and then we will bring James in. Here it comes.
1500s, Edinburgh, Scotland. The years which seen the Treaty of Edinburgh, the agreement of the troops of England and France to leave Scotland to its own devices and settle its own affairs. The same year as the start of the Acts of Reformation Parliament, in which the establishment of the Protestant Church of Scotland occurred. Approximately 12,000 residents of Edinburgh living in a busy and very dirty city. Dark, narrowing streets and wynds, but not a nice place to be at the end of the Middle Ages. With illness running high and sanitation running low, plague deaths would be imminent. This was to be the setting for a kirk and kirkyard, which was to take its name from a recently dissolved Franciscan friary who wore grey robes. Greyfriars. The kirkyard, or latter termed a graveyard, was established in August 1562 after a royal sanction granted the yards of the kirk to be used for burials as the dead population at St Giles grew higher and higher. regarded as one, if not the, most haunted graveyard in the world. Greyfriars is famous for several stories, including the Covenant's prison, a makeshift barbaric method of housing an estimated 1,000 people who would reject the rule of the king. George Bloody Mackenzie, the Lord Advocate that housed them there, who is now better known as the Mackenzie Poltergeist. Greyfriars Bobby, the world-famous Skye Terrier, whose statue resides outside the Kirkyard gates. Mort safes, steel structures designed to cover graves of the recently deceased in an attempt to prevent the grave robbers from stealing their corpses. Famously, the story of William Buck and William Hare in 1828, who had first murdered their victims and then realised that grave robbing was far easier, resulting in Buck's hanging and dissection into a wallet made from his own skin. Welcome to Paranormal Patter with special guest James Corstorphine, as we delve into the history and ghost stories of Greyfriars Kirkyard.
Ladies and gents, James Corstorphine. Good to have you back, James. It's a fine-looking library you've got there behind you.
Oh, is it? Yeah. It's all the spooky books about Edinburgh and Greyfriars, yeah.
Do us a favour, mate, and go and pick one off the shelf and we'll have a look at it.
Class.
That lasted a whole 3 seconds.
Fantastic.
That was like Neil Buchanan. Oh, no way.
Oh, excellent.
That is
Where
a
did you get
gorgeous
that?
book. Where did you get hold of that from?
It's my wife's.
That's a shame. Have you got any, mate, as a man who lives with a woman, do you have any cool stuff of your own?
No. Yes,
Oh,
I've got lots
good.
of cool stuff. Yes. It's a very amicable relationship, yes.
Excellent. That makes one of us.
Johnny Fraser says, hi, guys. And Kay Redmond says, Shirley Kirkpatrick. Don't suppose you've heard any Shirley Kirkpatrick ghosts, have you, James?
No, I've not, no.
No, I'm assuming she's tagging somebody called Shirley Kirkpatrick to tune into this thing.
In which case,
there we go.
thank you. So recently, Kieran joined us on the Paranormal Patter. This is our mini-series that runs every 2 weeks where we take classic Scottish stories and we start chatting about, what's happened and whether or not we believe it, all that cool stuff. And if we can investigate it, or say turn up and show up to it and see what happens. When they say so much investigate it, then we shall. So Kieran went back and listened to the Lockdown Lore episode and said he had a couple of questions for you. None that we actually know. So Kieran, the floor is yours, fella.
Cool. Well, is that the man? Pleasure to meet you.
All right.
So I was going, as Kevin was saying, I was going through the Lockdown Lore episode, and you said quite promptly off the bat that any evidence to do with orbs, just fucking bin it. Which,
yeah,
I've heard quite a few people say, and quite a lot of even professional classed ghost hunters refuse any orb pictures or any orb video. I was curious if you've ever seen or had anyone that sort of had any experience to do with like ectoplasm, or ever come across anything like that upon your times within the spooky place of Edinburgh?
Short of it, no. I don't know if I don't know if somebody sneezing and firing projectile ectoplasm from their nose counts. Maybe they've just got a fright and sneezed. I've certainly never had any experience of. But then again, in the vaults, you don't know what's dripping on you. It's,
that's fair.
So, yeah, if ectoplasm tastes kind of salty, then yeah, we've had that. Yeah.
Straight in there.
That's an image I'm going to have with me for a while.
George.
Okay, fair. No, that's fair. I'm just curious. It was something that hadn't been brought up. And the other one I thought of was you'd mentioned about the gentleman and that was kind of thrown around the tomb and said that he was Australian. around the kind of time frame kicking about Edinburgh, late 1700s, early 1800s, was a lot of the time that the British folk were sent across to Australia.
Mm.
And I'm trying to see in my mind if I can come across some sort of connection between any historic residents of Edinburgh that have a negative connection with Australia, basically because we had seen it as basically a prison where we sent people we don't like. So now any Australians coming back, is that something that you think is tied to why they're targeting Australians specifically?
I'm not entirely sure. I mean, maybe it's a statistic that we could possibly look at, I suppose. Never really thought about breaking it down to, I mean, obviously we take details for the documentational purposes, where people are from, as part of the report kind of thing. But yeah, maybe we could look through that data and, possibly put something together. But I can't think of anything that would, make it racist towards Australians.
Racist ghosts.
I'm not saying that there are any racist ghosts. It's just something that I was thinking about, and being a complete, stats nerd. I couldn't help when you started to make that connection. I'm like, well, we don't like Australians historically, so I wonder if ghosts are they've never changed in their ways.
Yeah.
So did you have any other questions from that previous
podcast? No, that's the two that I had kind of fired out at the time.
Well, for us, it was good to kind of speak to. We always wonder, when someone says, "Oh, I had an experience," there's always that, "Oh, here we go," right? Because everybody wants to have had an experience, and that's why I've always said the experiences I've had, you just know I'm not making it up, because I would have made up something more interesting. But James,
far more cool.
Absolutely. I mean, we all go to, like, the most I'll see at work is someone getting their foot run over with a forklift, right? Which is quite entertaining. It doesn't happen all the time, right? But of all of us,
it was you, wasn't it? It was you. But yeah, I've been trying to get this out of you since the beginning. The first thing you said was, "Oh, somebody got their foot run over at work today with a forklift," and it wasn't me. Like, when somebody is so protestant about the fact that it wasn't them, I would say that it was probably them.
Well, I can guarantee it wasn't them yet. But
there's always time.
Well, there is. And if I do it, it'll be deliberate. So I'll hold my hands up to that one.
Mate, if that ever happens by accident, you are.
So your workplace is essentially, it's a place where you're more likely to encounter ghosts than anybody walking the street. So for you, how do you I can't even put it into words. How do you live your day-to-day life by being like, yeah, my ghosts, I work with ghosts?
It's just another day in the office, really, isn't it? It's just, I mean, you get used to it, I suppose. I mean, 15 years I've been with the company now, so pretty much seen it all, But, most of the problems we have, certainly in Greyfriars, are not anything to do with the dead, It's usually the living that are causing the problems. But,
what kind of
dead people
what kind of examples do you have of the living causing problems? I mean, what's your top 3 arsehole moments of people in the Kirkyard?
Generally just drunk people if they're going through from roundabout Greyfriars down to the grass market, uses a sort of cut through. And if there's a tour on, they just because nobody's ever went up behind a ghost tour before and went, "Woo!" Ever do that in the whole world?
I'd like to take the opportunity now to apologise for that.
Yeah, actually, because the guy was naked as well. I thought
you never catch me naked. When I'm naked, I look like 10 pounds of shit in a £5 bag, so I don't do the whole naked thing.
So we have Seema here saying, "Hey guys, love this podcast, but I always have to say my prayers after listening because I get scared easy, just in case." Well, I bet
it's behind
you. So, do you ever feel like when you go home from work that you can? I read in Jan's book, Jan Andrew Henderson, the guy that he's the creator of City of the Dead tours.
Yeah, indeed, he's the owner. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had read. I mean, we literally, Kieran, you've just yours just arrived after I had told you about it, but I have binged 3 of his books in a matter of like 3 days. That's such nice. And one thing, I'm sure it was him in the book, because sometimes I couldn't tell who it was he was talking about, whether it be himself, because I kind of figured out that I know he changed the characters' names, but I believe one to be about him, where he goes home and stuff starts happening in his own house, and someone else had gone home and said that they'd seen something that had made them be like, all right, George knows where I live, assuming that it was George. Do you get any of that yourself, where you go home and you're like, my work is with me?
No, my home is chaos anyway. I mean, my wife's a death historian. You know, she specializes in funerals and burials, and you know, that's what she does. So there's death, you know, all around us. But certainly, I mean, I think I once did an EVP in the house years ago after I had an EVP somehow in my possession, and it was quite interesting, you know, the growls and everything like that. But I don't feel anything is in the house. Certainly not. I mean, I'm a bit as psychic as a fire extinguisher. You know, I've never seen a ghost in my life, so I ain't going to see one now. But it doesn't mean it don't exist. I've certainly seen a lot of things that are certainly not, you know, human orientated. So you know, like there's definitely something there, but I don't know what it is.
I like that death is all around us, like the next Christmas single by Deed.
Deed. And they wait till they snuff it. Maybe that'll be the next thing. And that's one of the things I always think, right? Because there are so many.
Death there are so many. Us. Yeah.
There are so many. Shit, isn't it? Anyway, that's a Love Actually reference that nobody here will get, but I've got a tash.
So there are so many different mediums out there that all claim to be able to. I mean, I've visited them and they're really good. So there's so many mediums out there that claim to speak to spirits and can tell you, you know, stuff from the other side and stuff. So I think, as that stands, why, if it's so certain, if like, so say I could do it, and I'm speaking to someone from long gone, I'd be like, right, secrets, let's do this, right? And I would take it further. Why is it that it seems to just be a high street thing where you could go in and speak to your gran who died 40 years ago? You know what I mean? Why is it not on a bigger scale? Like, I was speaking to David Bowie and he's telling me all the things that he never told you when he was alive. You know what I mean? Do you is that something
I suppose it could be a thing if David Bowie didn't know you, so why the fuck would he talk to you now? You know? You're like, who the hell are you, mate? Fuck off. You know? Fucking Kevin who? Johnny Mac, right? Yeah, I remember you from that Backstreet Waffle, J Mac. Yeah.
It's just one of those. What are some of the...
I mean, I think, do you not get different levels of mediumship? You know, the, like contact wise, you know, so different mediums can pick up different elements and stuff. But I don't know. I mean, I've certainly seen a lot that. You know, it does make a mockery of things to a certain extent. But there is certain things I've seen and, you know, heard that there's basically no way this person could have known this about this single person. You know, you can certainly do researches. I mean, I think Darren Brown went right into it, you know, about the whole thing, which was fascinating.
Yeah.
How you know, the code readers and stuff like that, and the information that they can gather from, you know. But when this person has no contact with this person before, so there's no time to research everything, you know, and they can tell you a secret, you know, that only that person would understand. You know, some of the things you can't explain.
I actually gave a cold reading to a barmaid about a month ago. It was when I left my previous job. I gave her a cold reading. I have had zero training in giving cold readings. I just made shit up on the spot, and without even thinking about it, she was like, aye. It's so fucking easy. That's the scary thing about it. Is everybody has the same. Everybody's got the same insecurities, and everybody's got certain familiar things about their life and people that they've known that you can always tap into something. It's like, you can be quite self-critical, eh? It's like, aye, well, we all can, really, and just dig into that a wee bit. So there's a woman behind you. I looked at her age. She was clearly about 30. I was like, right, this looks like it could be a grandmother. Is your grandmother still alive? She's like, no. I was like, it's her.
Yeah.
It's a piece of piss. If you get somebody that's willing to accept it, it's such a piece of piss. Anyway, I feel like we're kind of diving into so many different things at once here, man. We're kind of, it's like, let's talk about mediums, let's talk about ghosts, let's talk about this. So let's talk about your background and what you do with Greyfriars Kirkyard. Now, you said you've been with the company for 15 years, roughly?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. Yeah.
And how did you get into that anyway? I mean, nobody goes to uni to do poltergeistology.
Poltergeistology, yeah. I think it's no. I mean, certainly. I'm definitely not a parapsychologist. So
that's the word.
Yeah, parapsychologist. I'm a poltergeistist. Yeah.
Poltergeistist. A poltergeist.
I used to be really into the ghost side of things when I was younger. Well, not younger, but and it was back in 2003 I first read The Ghost That Haunted Itself. Now, at that time I was living in a place, Newport, near St Andrews, where I'm from. And I read the book and I couldn't put it down. And I was like, this is fascinating. And at that point, I hadn't even thought about visiting Edinburgh, let alone maybe one day working for the company that I was reading about, and then actually, ultimately running the company. So reading that book, and I really wanted to get over to Edinburgh and go and see the Covenanters prison and stuff like that, and learn more about the Mackenzie poltergeist. And then after I'd done it, I just forgot about it, and I was a professional drummer playing all over the place, and I had to give that up due to shoulder injuries. So I was moping about this.
Are you the drummer boy? Are you the little drummer boy?
I will, yeah. I'll bang in him, mate. Especially Jim-Mac with that tickly tash.
I might actually just keep it for another week just so I can do this whenever anybody's saying anything slightly funny or sarcastic, I can just go. It's such a handy little thing to have. But yeah,
it's not the first time he said that.
I'm not keeping it. Fucking look at that. That's horrendous.
Like, which version of Chris Moyles?
Chris Boyles. That's me, Chris Boyles. In fact, feel free to call me that for the rest of the show, Chris Boyles.
J-Mac going for the Thompson. Look, Stephen Thompson asks, just got here. What company is it? Just at the top there, as you can see, City of the Dead. You can go ahead and check them out at cityofthedeadtours.com, where there's basically, I mean, I take it City of the Dead. Did you buy Greyfriars, or did that?
No. We just ran the office. I mean, Greyfriars itself belongs to the council.
Mm-hmm.
It's council grant. They own it. The church, obviously. But we took on when Jan originally got the access to the prison after the prison area in Greyfriars was locked shut by the council, because of the strange occurrences and stuff. Now it's easier to keep people out, and basically prevention is better than cure. So just lock it off. Lock that section off. So Jan approached them, saying, "Look, I'm at the moment writing a book, which was The Ghost That Haunted Itself. I'm writing the book, so I need to do research. I need to be able to take people in there, friends, family, whatever, people that want to go in, and I need to document what they feel. I need to do this." And the council said, "No." So
a council that says no. My God.
No.
So Jan decided to have a think about it. He went away, and he basically put together a contract. He got himself public liability insurance, and he went and he said, "Look, if you let us have sole access to the prison, let me to take people in there to keep documenting this thing. Here's my public liability insurance. If we take rent off the office, the old watch house in the graveyard, we'll use that as an office, and we'll rent that from you, and we'll pay for sole access to the prison, and we still have the keys 22 years later."
Do you know when when it was locked off, like when the council took the decision to lock the Kirkyard off? I mean, had it been open to the public for hundreds of years before that?
Well, the Kirkyard is still open to the public. You can walk around the Kirkyard. It's just that one area.
That one area.
Kirkyard, the South Yard. Yeah. That's what is known as the Covenanters prison.
Right.
Just that stretch.
What was the final straw that kind of made the council close it off?
Well, no, it wasn't. It was the council's decision.
Boris Johnson had a party in it.
It was a cheese and wine meeting. It was They decided to lock off because of the strange occurrences. There was things like I think there was 11 ambulances called in the space of 3 months for people in the prison area, and not because of drugs or anything. It was because they just collapsed outside this one tomb in that area. They'd fallen over and broken an arm or smacked their head. So there was injuries, and sometimes they were with partners, sometimes they were alone. It was all centered around this one tomb. So now the council, who are not insured for graveyard, people are dead when they get there. So they don't need insurance. So instead of, like I said, prevention is better than cure. Mm-hmm. For that amount of things to be happening in that one area, they saw it as dangerous in a sense. So they just locked the gates, and they just locked the gates over and put a padlock up.
Right. So then it seems more like it was on a kind of rational. Listen, there's people getting injured. It's a public liability thing at this point, more than a parapsychological.
It does come down to that. But the news of the strange happenings had already been in the press. People coming away with scratches, and and it had already made sort of small news in the press. So it was already gathering momentum. But nobody knew what it was. A lot of people were still looking at these people, going, "Well, they're just nutters." Oh yeah, well, you got scratched and stuff. Yeah. So it was still relatively small at that point. It was Jan that called it the Mackenzie Poltergeist. It was him that called it, and I said to him not that long ago, he should have copyrighted that name, because it's just like everybody talks about it, but very rarely it's the real story they're giving people, which is really quite irritating, because I've read something on a website that's totally made up.
Yeah. I suppose that'll always happen. Now, here's some of the images here, the courtesy of yourselves, that people had documented while being on your tours.
No, that's the wrong folder, mate. That's my that was a wee party I had last week, man. Wrong link, sorry.
There's that one on the far right looks like a dinosaur bit him in the shoulder or something. You I was thinking when all this happens, right?
Yeah, I've witnessed them. Yeah, these photos are sent to us by people who have been on the tours. A lot of people don't realise. There is still a lot of people who go away that don't know it's happened. The majority of people do say it's like a cold or a burning sensation, and then we don't know if it's going to be the bruise marks, or the scratch marks, or the bite marks. There is no set ways to it, but these are not human scratches, and this is why I'll always argue with psychologists. Psychologists say that the people do it to themselves. They can't. They're like cat scratches. They're not human scratches. And for somebody to be standing in proximity to other people that close when they're all on heightened alert, they're in the lair of one of the most violent poltergeists in the world. And people are like, if somebody so much as even moves a foot, people are like, what are they doing? They're just like basically shitting themselves, basically.
Yeah.
And so for somebody to be able to scratch themselves without somebody noticing, in that, no, it's impossible. Absolutely impossible.
Especially in some of the positions where those scratches are, like that's not an easy thing to do if you're going to try and do that.
Well, could you bring up? Sorry, could you bring up the very last one that you showed? I think
this one,
that one, the top left.
Yeah.
Other than those scratches, that's a really pretty back. If she didn't do that to herself, somebody had a good ass time.
Yeah, that was like fingerprints on the spine, like somebody grabbed from the side.
Yeah.
Fingerprints are quite common as well. Yeah, we get a lot of round the neck area. People think they're get a sort of smothering feeling, like they can't breathe. And then when you see the flashlight, there's finger impressions on their neck and things, and shoulders are quite popular as well. Under clothes, And again, these people can't do it under jackets and t-shirts, and it's impossible.
Yeah.
See the very first one you had up, Kevin. It was the very first shot on the left-hand side. There was like a picture. It looked like it looks like the indentation of the necklace is like burned into the skin.
Yeah, it's almost an identical kind of. Yeah.
That's insane.
The ingot, I think, is it an ingot? Is it?
It's an ingot or something like that. The name ring sounds right.
Stephen.
Yeah, just to reply to Stephen Thompson there. Yeah, it's only City of the Dead that have access to the prison. We've always had the only access to the prison. So other tour groups talk about it, but none of them have access to the actual lair of the Mackenzie Poltergeist.
That'll be why. So it was the different kind of one. Dave Martin says, I've just went onto Amazon to buy The Ghost That Haunted Itself. Sounds like my kind of book. There we go. Tell Jan we want 25%.
I love that title. It's like The Ghost That Haunted Itself. Like the ghost walks past the mirror and it's like, oh, you bastard me.
Spooky bastard.
Stephen Thompson says, was it true that a homeless guy broke into the tomb and disturbed the remains? Well,
That's true, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's true. 1999, there was a homeless guy who was just trying to seek shelter. There was no malicious, intent. He just wanted to get shelter. Now, as you look into the Mackenzie Mausoleum through the front doors, it's got the ground level just in front of the doors, then the burial chambers below, where the coffins are. There's also another floor under that, which is an old grave of the family who were there before Mackenzie's Mausoleum was built. That's the Forrester family. That's their remains. So the homeless guy went in, he went downstairs because the wind was rattling through. He broke in through the back. There's a big space at the back of the mausoleum. And he went downstairs to where the coffins are. Now, unfortunately for him, he fell through the floor. And the first thing he did was grab a coffin, because that was the only thing he could grab. And that brought the coffin down, and it damaged the coffin. It didn't break open, but it damaged the top and it damaged the side. And then obviously he ran out and decided to try and sleep somewhere else that didn't involve dead bodies.
God dang it.
So that was the first time that his tomb was entered and desecrated, so to speak. And that's when things started happening. It wasn't instantly, it was maybe a few weeks after it. That's when things started to happen within the tomb in the prison area. This is where it gets confusing for people who don't have access to it, because everybody believes that the Mackenzie Mausoleum in the main graveyard, the big domed one, everybody believes that's the Black Mausoleum, when it's not. That's just George Mackenzie's burial mausoleum. The Black Mausoleum, where the attacks happen on people, is in the locked Covenanters prison. That is where the attacks happen. So something triggered something from when Mackenzie's Mausoleum was, desecrated. Something triggered in this tomb in the prison. And that's when it really started heating up, so to speak. That's when the attacks were becoming more and more frequent, with people going in and things.
Can you tell anybody that's watching that's not familiar with George Mackenzie himself, can you just give a brief history of who he was and what he'd done and why he might be haunting the place?
He's a mad shagger. Sir George Mackenzie, he was Lord Advocate to King Charles over him. He worked his entire life to get to where he was. Basically, he made the laws in Scotland. He was as high as you could go in Scotland without going to the king. So he was kind of backed up in a corner, and unfortunately, people only remember the bad stuff about George Mackenzie. How he was, but then again, some people would have you believe that George Mackenzie was pulling an 8-hour shift on a Sunday at the prison, strangling Covenanters with his hand. Yeah. No, George Mackenzie done a lot more good things in his life than he did bad. Put it this way. Yeah. He founded the Advocates Library in Edinburgh. He donated a lot of money to charity of his wealth. He also abolished, one of the main reasons that witch trials were abolished in Scotland, for this whole witch thing. And so he defended, so this whole thing, he hates females, utter garbage. He defended them. He also ended up defending Covenanters after, the Presbyterian and everything broke. So he, but unfortunately, he's George Mackenzie had nothing to do with the prisoners in the Covenanters prison. He signed it off. That was the only connection he had. He never visited. He never, he was Lord Advocate. He was in an office. He didn't come down and shoot them and strangle them. But again, a lot of the stuff, it grows tails over the years, and different people in tour groups now adapt the story to suit their own tours, and it's lost the element of what it is. I mean, to this day, we still say there is no evidence it's anything to do with George Mackenzie.
It's that old adage, Joe. You shag one sheep.
See, the one thing as well, when I was reading Jan's book, and he went through the history, and that's in The Ghost That Haunted Himself. I'm actually going to bring up a picture out there for anybody that does wish to go to Amazon. They're not actually that expensive, so even if it's no payday, you can definitely go check out. These are the three I read: The Ghost That Haunted Itself, City of the Dead, and The Town Below the Ground. James, I know you've done both the Ghost That Haunted, the City of the Dead.
No, I've done City of the Dead. Yeah.
Yep, that's your images. For anybody that wishes to see James's images, definitely.
Oh, James, your photography is outstanding. By the way, every time you put something up, I just love looking at it. It's gorgeous.
It's all in the camera.
If you ever want to send me a wee free printer 12,
the thing when I was reading The Ghost That Haunted Itself,
you can buy them.
Cheaper than Jan's books.
While reading that book, I was like, well, wait a minute. He goes into the history of the Covenanters. Like the Covenanters were like, here, we're going to do our thing, right? The other guys were like, no, you're no, right? And then they were like, Ken, what? See, instead of us going to war, you can do your thing. And then France were like, we're going to smash you. And the Covenanters jumped in, right? So it's kind of their own fault that
well, I mean, the Covenanters basically, what it comes down to is the Covenanters basically said, nobody's bigger than God. That's what it came down to. I mean, a lot of people get confused about it, thinking it's something to do with independence and that. It's not. It's not to do with independence whatsoever. It's basically they were pissed off that Charles was pulling a Henry, basically. You know, Charles wanted to be ultimate head of the church as well. And they said, look, no, God save the king, but don't mess with religion. You know, you're not bigger than God. So do what you want. We support you. We will not draw arms to you. That's what the National Covenant was. You know, it was them signing to say, we accept the monarchy, blah, blah, but don't mess with our religion.
Yeah.
And that's when obviously the prayer books came in with the changes in the prayer books. You know, where it was changing it to, you know, from the Almighty Lord to, it was changing the wording to put basically the king in word is higher than the church, and caused riots. That was when the first thing sort of started off, the riots where a woman, was it Mrs. Geddes, I think it was, I can't remember her first name, when she was so angry, she picked up a stool and threw it at the minister.
What type of stool?
Are we talking like a wooden stool here, or where are we going?
No, we chocolate drop. It was a stool. I would have said shite otherwise. She'd done a big dump and loved it.
We thought
You're perfect, mate. Here, have that. No, it was so basically that was it. You know, the National Covenant, and then that obviously led to the 50 years of killing. You were either with the king or against the king, basically. And let's face it, the Stuart, dynasty had not had that much good luck in monarchy. So,
true.
George Mackenzie especially, he couldn't turn around to Charles and go, look, Charlie, sit yourself down, calm down, Beyonce, have a cup of tea, right? Here's the script, right? They're not caring about what you do, but come on, you need to admit, don't make yourself be God. Calm yourself. Just reality check, mate.
Yeah.
Like I said, that would have been treason. He was against the king. He would have been executed. Next person. It was a conveyor belt, so he was backed in a corner, and he was doing his job. But George Mackenzie never killed a single person with his own hand. He knew what was happening with Montrose. Montrose was the one that loved killing people. He was the one that was all for disemboweling them on their doorstep and things, I mean, Mackenzie knew it was happening, just normal. What did you do at work today, dear? Oh, well, I just disemboweled 14 Covenanters. A couple of kids as well. It's all right, they were ginger. Who cares about them?
Sent a wee boy down a tunnel as well with a drum. Funny thing, he's still drumming.
And I kicked a dug in the tits and Greyfriars.
I think old Jamie here has been far too protective of old George Mackenzie at this point. Right, Jamie, do me a favour. George can't hear you, right? Like,
no.
If you're in distress, just he's a wink or something, and we'll send somebody.
Ask if Susan's working.
We have a couple questions here that have been mounting up. Sam Mislowski says, I hope I pronounced that right, sorry, says, hey guys, and then asks, the Covenanters prison is a different ballgame, atmosphere completely changes. What a question. That was me that said
that's a statement.
C. Matthewman says, my pal's been before and mentioned the circle of death. Is that a thing? He's also a guy who's told me not to visit. No,
that sounds like your mate's talking about the circle in Nidri Street Vaults by Old Reekie Tours. They've got a circle in their vaults that you're not meant to stand in. That's what that sounds like. Nothing to do with Greyfriars.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember seeing that. And actually, through my ignorance and lack of fucking, let's see, what's the word? Lack of research. I thought you had something to do with the Nidri Street vaults as well. So apparently,
it's true. Not Nidri Street vaults. We're on Nidri Street South. It's a different street, but that's where the confusion lies. Old Ricky have got Nidri Street. We're on Nidri Street South. It's across the bottom of the Cowgate and up the other side of the bridge. So it's Nidri Street, but it's South Nidri Street. So that's where the confusion comes from. So we'll let you off for that one. It does happen.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I remember
different section of vaults.
I remember the Circle of Stones, and I also remember a certain very famous UK TV show went to the Niddry Street vaults and stood in the circle and tried to invoke some nastiness by saying some horrible shit, and lo and behold, fuck all happened.
Nobody died.
But
it was right there. That was quite interesting because the bridge was like 180 years after the last plague left, which I thought was quite fascinating.
Yes, we shall not discuss the name of the program, but it rhymes with schmost schmonted. Let's go.
Say I walked into the Black Mausoleum. Is it very likely that I'm going to get smashed?
Depends how much J-Mac pays me, really.
No enough.
For a small admin fee, it could be arranged, you know.
With this tash, I'll smash you myself. I'll give you a tash smash.
Super.
I keep making this face. I cannot help but make this
It's
face
almost
with
like
the tash.
Sean Connery. Oh gosh, tash smash you.
You just know that Craig Matthewman's going to have you illustrated in some sort of
Nah, that's it. Staying now. It's become a permanent fixture.
That's it. That's that. See, actually, that face I just made, I want that on my gravestone. That's going on my gravestone in Greyfriars if I can get a plot.
Killed by a tash smash.
Super Tash Bros.
Right. For the next episode, all three of us have to have tashies.
Right. Do you know what's funny? We're actually planning to go in with James to the vaults. I think we should all go just Tash.
Aye.
Get ready to tash smash those ghosts.
Getting Live Aid vibes. So how likely? Like
I just got that. It took me a second. Sorry.
There is no answer, to be honest. I mean, we'd love it to be frequent. I mean, we'd love to be able to tell when it was going to happen, or you know. But it is completely random. Sometimes we can go months without anything happening, and we're like, well, maybe that's it. You know, it moves on, or just gets bored, or it's on isolation or something. You know, But we just don't know. I mean, over 3,000 eyewitness accounts now, and we've run 22 years. So when you break it down, you know, it's not every night, but there's times we've had 2 or 3. You know,
Have you ever had like a steadfast, staunch, fucking non-believer come to you at the end of a tour and go, dude, this has changed my viewpoint on life?
Several times. It's just funny as cliche as that sounds. You know, no, it has happened, yeah. I mean, if I'm doing a tour, I'll always say to people, look, I don't particularly care what your beliefs are. If you believe in this thing or not, you know, I'm not here to change your mind. You know, that's not my job. But you know, this thing doesn't care if you believe in it or not. If this thing takes a dislike to you, it's going to get, you know, it is going to come and basically get you. Whether you want to believe it or not, you know. So, but no, funnily enough, actually, majority of people do tell us if it does have like, oh, I would never have believed this was true until it happens, and we do get a lot of comments like that as well. Well, my friend was totally thinking it was a joke, and you know, but then she come away with scratches and things. So, totally unexplainable, yeah. But no,
then
I mean,
his face.
I've got two.
Do you think there's a reason that I mean, it always seems like haunted paranormal phenomena, it seems to only ever happen in like really old places. Now you never hear about oh mate, I saw a ghost the other day. He was wearing a naff tracksuit and a pair of kickers. It never happens. It's always like kind of Georgian clothes and stuff like that. What do you think? I know you're not a parapsychologist and shit, but what do you think's the reason that there has to be age to something for it to be paranormal?
Well, yeah, I mean, nobody's ever reported seeing the ghost of a caveman or anything. You're not walking about with a big cloak down the Gorbals on a Friday night in a stormy night. You know, it's got this caveman running about. Mind you, that could be pretty normal.
I'm not allowed out at night.
That's a normal Friday night. You know, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, majority are either, but again, you know, the Edwardians and Victorians and stuff, you know, they were very up on their ghost stories, you know, the women in black and things like that, you know. Some say the ultimate ghost story, you know, and that's possibly where it all, you know, kind of, although obviously ghosts and things have been going way back. Spirits, like obviously the the tribes and things like that with their spirits and their spirit, and the spirits bring them life and different beliefs. But yeah, I mean, majority of reported ghosts in the UK anyway are, Roman or Edwardian or Victorian. And, yeah,
it's funny. I love watching like the American shows, and they're like, it's like, okay, we're going to see this haunted building. This building is so old. It was built in 1972. It's like, mate, I've got socks that were built before that.
Building socks. Dave Martin says, I have to admit I'm a non-believer, but only because I haven't experienced anything. He also says, Ghost with Lacoste tracksuit and Burberry. Get on. Matthew says, I was on a ghost bus tour a few years back. We stopped at a graveyard, but I was a bit pissed and can't remember where it was. Only thing I remember is the story about the bells and grave ringers. Was that really a thing? Yeah, the Burke.
Yeah, that was a real thing.
That's the thing. That's the for whom the bell tolls. Is that where that comes from?
Deep bell, yeah. And obviously back then, a lot of people did go into comas, and they didn't understand what a coma was. So people did wake up after being pronounced dead. We didn't have the beep 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 beep. It was all touch the hand, and the doctor was probably half cutting opiates anyway. So he wouldn't be feeling anything through his fingers.
Imagine waking up to that, just like,
No, fuck. Here's the thing, right? In the book, in Jan's book, The Ghost That Haunted Itself, and I remember I just pissed myself laughing, right? It says,
of course you did. Like, Kevin, you could laugh at literally anything that you shouldn't laugh at.
Well, it was funny, but imagine this, though. Imagine you're a grave robber with your Birkin hair, right?
They were grave robbers. They were killers.
Well, killers and grave robbers. And they open a casket and they go to cut. They see an old woman with lots of rings on, and they go to cut her finger, and she goes, "Ah!" Can you imagine how much you would shit yourself?
Well, there's a lot of misconception around that as well with the grave robbers. A lot of people thought that they cut the fingers to get the rings, which is not true. They cut the fingers off because pre-1832, the Anatomy Act, it wasn't actually illegal to dig a dead body out of the ground, as long as they were naked, because the body didn't belong to anybody. It was God's creation. So, but rings, jewellery, clothes, they belong to somebody. That's theft. You could, in the worst case, be hanged for theft. So people would cut the fingers off because they couldn't get the rings off. They wouldn't take the ring because they were getting more money for the body than they would for a ring. So they would cut the fingers off and they would leave the fingers in the grave with the rings.
So ironically, they would cut fingers off of bodies to make it more legal.
Yes, and to make it basically, and to get more money. Yeah,
I was born in the wrong time era. That's incredible.
Yeah, but then it was kind of frowned upon. Until 1832, the Anatomy Act came into force, and that made it illegal to dig basically bodies out of the ground.
And it's true that they used to have a bell system, and this is where a dead ringer comes from, that someone would wake up from a coma. Oh, I'm no dead. Here's a string, start ringing it, and they would patrol the graveyard.
Yeah, not particularly, but people would usually hear it, especially in Victorian times. People started using graveyards as a kind of recreational area, so there would always be people, unless it was really early in the morning, in which case you're fucked. But yeah, you would ring the bell. Yeah, it was an alarm. It was an alarm, and and that's where, because people would think, walking past them in the street, going, "We buried you literally the other day," and that's where it comes from, a dead ringer. Yeah.
Is there any
Willie McIntosh for Still Game? I'm no dead. Somebody's been up and ransacked my house.
I'm back off your spooky bit.
Is there any cases of that happening at Greyfriars?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, it probably did happen. I mean, that was the whole point of them. That's why they were sort of popular. But as medicine went on, it became less and less necessary. By the grave robbing time, I very much doubt it was in effect. We were quite advanced, and we were leading the world in medicine at that point, because of the cadavers, being provided by the grave robbers. So, not Birkin here. We were just killing people. Yeah.
Right. Reese McColgan actually says something really interesting here. He says, I've been to Outswitch before, and as soon as you go in there, you can feel some sort of presence. I know that, again, I keep referring to this book, which is why everybody should check it out. It's really not that expensive and really good, worth the money. the ghost that haunted itself.
I've got it too, by the way. I just haven't shown you. It's sitting right over.
Aye, okay. Aye.
Way!
There it is. Aye, so in that
I've
book,
got a
he does-
different cover.
Aye, the original covers. Kev's got the original cover. J-Mac's got the new cover.
J-Mac.
Oh, of
Yeah,
course,
no,
I've got
that's
the one that's worth less
that's-
fucking
yeah.
money.
Kev's got the original. Yeah.
Well, see, he says in that book that could it be paranormal, or could it be? You'll probably know more about this, where he talks about how when so many people go into an area with negative energy, because like you
Yeah,
mentioned,
it's like
before-
pheromones are released. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So with that, do you like if Auschwitz was full of that kind of stuff, and say the Black Mausoleum was in the Covenanters prison, could that be something quite similar? Do you think there's a point in that?
Well, I mean, the Covenanters prison is known as the world's first concentration camp. Apart from it was open air, where mass prisoners were kept together. I mean, a lot of it does come down to psychosis as well, the psychology of it, where when they go in, you already know the stories. You've already read about it. You already know about it, and you already know about the atrocities that were. Sometimes you've obviously read or heard about Auschwitz. Other times on the tour, the guide's bigging the prison up all the tour, so you know that it's a site of multiple deaths.
Mm-hmm.
So again, that could be your own, brain putting, saddening thoughts on it. That's a perfectly reasonable, scientific theory behind it.
I do
Or
remember.
there's a dead person going around scratching people,
Never know.
which is probably more likely. Yeah.
I do remember reading a story about an American parapsychologist who started off with the same kind of conversation we're having, the same theory that an area that has like a kind of deep well and sadness attached to it tends to develop more paranormal happenings. And he basically conducted this study. I need to find it and see if I can send it across to you. But he basically had this study where he would take random members of the public to places that he knew of paranormal happening, but the people that were taken there were taken blindfolded and were taken like not unbeknownst themselves. They knew where they were going, but they were basically taken to an unknown location to them, so that when they got there, they didn't know the story to it. They didn't know any of the background, and it was basically to see if they could feel that sort of negative pressure, negative energy that was associated with those buildings. And I think the findings that he kind of got were relatively good. He wasn't enough to basically say like it's 100% true, but he was basically on the trial to get something out of it. I don't know how successful it is going forward, but it's definitely something that people have looked into in the past.
What was the question?
And another one, just quickly. That's not a question, it's just a thought. I don't think it's just you mentioned earlier on, right? You, because I'm a sad sack and I like numbers. You said you get roughly 3,000 eyewitness accounts.
Yeah, over the years,
over 22 years.
Yeah, 22 years, yeah.
That's 136 a year, which is once every 3 days.
That's mad.
Aye, when you think about that, well, it actually is more.
Have you ever had a? Have you ever had a like?
Saved me working that out. I don't know
Welcome.
Have you ever had like a particular day of a particular year where you've just went fucking hell? That's like 9 folk today that have been scratched or spanked or chucked against the wall.
Yeah, I mean there was one notable time, and that was in 2003. When a young 15-year-old boy broke into the Mackenzie Mausoleum and removed the head of one of the corpses and kicked it about the graveyard. We do remember the ferocity of the attacks went up. It was a lot of scratches, and the frequency also improved over the sort of weeks just after that. So we don't know if that was anything to do with energy, because it was all in the media. It was worldwide news, so everybody coming along pretty much had already heard about it. So they were, coming along, and obviously the guide had mentioned, well, recently this has happened, and so again that could have been. But yeah, there was a noticeable increase in the weeks after that had happened.
And then did they kind of go back to plateau and after that to what they were like before, or did it stay at a kind of higher level to previous?
There was a lot more scratches than knockouts. Knockouts are the most common. We call them knockouts. It's somebody getting knocked out cold, not fainting. You know, people get warnings of fainting. They can start feeling dizzy and hot, and they need to sit down. You know, a knockout is like the hypnotist has just come up and went sleep. They just drop. They could be, you know, talking to somebody or, you know, perfectly fine, and they just drop in a second.
George Mayweather Mackenzie.
Yeah, it's just like somebody just come up and just went, go sleep. Yeah, it's quite amusing to some people. Just to watch somebody just straight down. It also freaks friends out, but that didn't happen so much. It was mainly the scratches and the bruises and people being grabbed for a while. But then it sort of mellowed out again and just became the usual knockouts. And
you seem pretty kind of conditioned to it, or almost kind of stoic to what goes on there. I mean, have you ever had a moment in there where you've been like, holy shit, what did I just see?
It's kind of hard to think. I think the first time I saw the scratches appear on somebody live, kind of thing, you know, right there in front of us, and that was probably a sort of pivotal moment. Yeah, it was a Spanish camera guy. We were doing filming for a Spanish TV thing.
We watched that.
French. It was French.
French.
French one.
The French one.
Oh,
and we were in the prison in the mausoleum, and the camera guy was filming, and he suddenly got his other hand, and he started wiping his face like there was something in his face. I mean, so obviously the camera moved, so the director was like, "Stop!" You know, shouting that, and we're like, "What's wrong?" And he started wiping it, and I was like, "Give me the light." So got the torch on his face, and I literally saw the 3 scratches appear right down his face. Of course, the camera was still down here, so we didn't have time to spin it around to catch them. But that was kind of like, wow, I've never actually seen it before. Usually it's people after the tour. It's not actually happening live. As you can see them get redder and redder and then, you know, welting up like cat scratches. That was pretty awesome.
A Nightmare in Greyfriars.
What was the last kind of... Oh, you go, Kev.
No, I was just saying it was like a Nightmare in Greyfriars.
What was the last kind of event that you had that not necessarily freaked you out, but they kind of you'd seen and just gone, well, that's new?
Not really, because you know, all amalgamates into one. The other one would have been the vaults. When it was actually in the vaults, not Greyfriars. When I heard the children laughing at like 3:10 in the morning.
Fuck that! No, fuck that!
Maintenance. Yeah.
What is it about kids? Like ghostly children are just fucking scary. That's
terrifying because they're more innocent, I think.
I think that's what you've got child ghosts, and the ghosts of old women are just like, fuck that noise. Right, I'm out. Like I could see the ghost of, I don't know, like a strong man for 1921, just like with my tash going. I would not give a shit if I seen a wee kid from 1902 wearing one of the wee dresses playing me like a fucking like a spinning top, just singing a wee creepy song. I'm gone. I'm
assuming you would not do too well seeing like any of the kids with black eyes, like that kind of.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Theory of kids all over the world showing up with black eyes.
Have you seen our spooky doll collection in the office in Greyfriars? No, you haven't, have you? Or haunted dolls collection.
I'm sure we will when we all go to Greyfriars at the start of February next month. Follow us, Jibber Jabber, as we go in there and all that shit.
Good point of future reference.
Yeah, that was the shittest plug ever.
I'll do the plugs from now on. Michaela Manzakova says, James, is there an experience that someone's told you about or you have experienced yourself that sticks with you till this day? Probably the one that sends the shivers down the spine the most.
Which one?
I was going to say, how shit would it be if it just went, no.
Not really, no. Probably the camera guy one was pretty cool. That was kind of like, oh, you know, the kids laughing that I definitely heard, although I wasn't on a tour. A couple of the photographs have been sent have been quite interesting, though, those things. because obviously I know the layout of the vault's like the back of my hand, and to see something there that shouldn't be there, and it's I just it can be quite. There has been a few actually, especially from people on the tours who write to and email us afterwards.
I mean, that one that we can see right now is creepy, yeah.
That is.
Aye. You actually sent me that. You sent me that, and I looked on my phone at it before, and I wasn't really getting it. But seeing it on the big screen, I think I might need to go and sleep with my mum tonight.
The first thing I thought when I saw that was, wow, Bez was in Greyfriars, and then I had noticed the ghost.
Have you ever had James a tour guide just quit halfway through a tour?
Yeah, I mean, we've got tour guides who, even when they go through the training and stuff, and everything's great, and they obviously know what they're getting into, and they just, I don't know if they think it's a big laugh or something, but there's been a few times where on a guide's training tour, when the first time they are actually doing a tour, put them on a tour, and there's been a few times they've actually quit that night because something's happened. And a couple of them have said in the past, well, I didn't think it was actually real. And it's like, and that's been it. So yeah, we've had a few guides don't go into certain places. A couple of the guides won't actually go into the Black Mausoleum; they'll only stand outside. So yeah, I mean, it does affect the guides as well, I suppose. Yeah, well, again, you do get kind of used to it.
Yeah.
So we do have plans to meet with you in February to kind of check it out and do a lot of filming and stuff. So say I was like, yo, J-Mac totally up for going in the Black Mausoleum. Is that something that can happen where we can just be like, right, go J-Mac, and we can film him? Is that very possible? Yeah.
Obviously, I mean, there is the permits and things like that. Unfortunately, due to Greyfriars being owned by the council, there is a lot of rules in place because it's a historic site above all else. So unfortunately, filming and stuff like that, I mean, ghost investigations are completely banned from Greyfriars. The council banned them in 2007. We used to have, overnight stays in the prison and stuff, but that was all, stopped. Again, filming has to be permitted. You have to get hold of the council, let them know you're filming and things like that. It all has to be above board, and there's enforcement officers in Greyfriars now as well, which is good to see for the antisocial side of things. Not that it was bad, but it does kind of, help with antisocial. And there's a new tour guide registration scheme where all tour guides now have to be registered to use Greyfriars, which is a fantastic thing.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Aye, so can we get in or what?
That's 24/7. I have the keys, yeah, of course.
But so we just can't film him getting smashed. I mean, we can.
No.
What about still photography?
Yeah,
you can
do loads of snaps. Yeah, I mean, obviously, people are allowed in obviously, if you're a tourist and you're filming, just for your TikTok reel or something like that, that's perfectly allowed. It's anything that's commercial wise or going on live. It's a separate permit for a live stream permit. But anything that's going to go on a website to promote anything else, you need obviously a permit and license for to be able to use that. From the council. But people are obviously taking photos during the day if they're on their trip. That's perfectly, obviously. I see a lot of people get under the impression it's a public space. The amount of ghost hunting groups that, get really ratty as well as a public place and do what I want. It's not a public space. It belongs to the council. It's council grounds. If they want to lock the gates 24/7.
We'll have a wee chat about that aspect of shit once the show's finished, just to kind of iron stuff out. We might need to end up contacting the council and stuff like that. But anyway, can you bring up that last comment, Kevin?
Which one?
Taps.
Aye.
Yeah. Taps. Is that not the big
that's
ghost
the Atlantic Paranormal Society. That's Ghost Hunters. That's fucking Sci-Fi Channel. That's if that's from them, that's fucking sweet.
Yeah, that's
shout out to
I know. Yeah, for what I know, that's big time.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. If Cody Ray Debien, that's so French. If you are genuine, man, thanks for tuning in. If you're not, what you doing? Fucking doing that?
That is the most Scottish response to something like that. That looks awesome. See if you're fake, you're a prick.
Cover all angles from the start.
Just in case, you don't want to be too happy.
I've just done a quick Google search, and Cody's really comes up in amongst it.
Oh,
he's very well known.
Man, if that's you, man, thank you very much for watching, and thanks for just commenting. I mean, that's sweet as enough, man. The guy in the bottom right is the the legend of this little adventure that we're on right now. But we're the host of the show, so we're more important. So thanks for getting in touch.
Cody says, "Yep, that's us. Always jumping on random paranormal live streams.
Wow.
Absolute pleasure."
Is that sarcastic or not? I just don't know. I've
got the most documented paranormal case in the world. So,
what exactly? When you
Cody,
look at it that way.
Follow us, Jibber Jabber Podcast. Get us followed. We will be in touch.
City of the Dead tours. Come along. I take it he's not from the UK, but if you're ever in the UK, Scotland, come along and do a City of the Dead tours. I'm sure James and Jan will be.
Do you know what? That would be pretty incredible to do, actually.
Well, hey, thanks, Cody. That's unexpected.
It's so funny. You have to be so careful about what you say. Oh my God, Sylvester Stallone just followed me. So this is the paranormal. That's the paranormal equivalent of Sylvester Stallone following you.
But I genuinely
on a movie podcast. Like you want taps to follow you. You know, so that's awesome. If that's real, and if it's real, thank you. If it's not, still fuck you. But anyway,
that's awesome.
That's awesome. Thank you very much, Cody.
You did send over a couple images before we start talking about the vaults, right? You sent over a couple images, and one I was like, "What is this?" So I'm going to bring it up now. What's that?
That's my girlfriend. No, wait. That makes me sound like a criminal.
She clearly wasn't buried with a bell, that's for sure.
That is a Chihuahua skeleton.
That is my ex-girlfriend.
And that's the yappy thing.
So is that? I take it. Was that because I know you said yourself?
I found that. Yeah. I found that in the vaults when I was excavating during the first lockdown. I decided to just go through a wall and start digging shit out. Why not? You know. So yeah, they were found in amongst an animal dump, basically a pit full of animal bones. I found horse jaws, cow jaws, pig teeth, and that Chihuahua skull and bones was big amongst it. No idea how.
How the hell did a Chihuahua skull get into that?
Because the pig
so the horse is okay, but the Chihuahua's not. Right? Are we just glossing over that entire conversation?
The thing is, I mean, the bones were there from when people lived there. That was the meat they were eating. It would have just been, the bones would have been just discarded. Right. So the Chihuahuas weren't introduced to the UK officially until 1860. But this part I was excavating is from about 1824. So the national, I got hold of the leading. Although it clearly is a Chihuahua. Yeah, it was my ringtone. The wife was trying to phone me.
What the fuck is going on?
So basically, yeah, it's a Chihuahua and it predates. But there was a lot of merchants in the Cowgate at that time. You know, a lot of merchants. So it could have been it could have been. I mean, obviously a dog that size with the horse and carts. It could have been trampled and killed. It could have been stolen and held for ransom to get money out of it, because only rich people would have had small dogs. It's countless. We don't know why it got there, but it is a Chihuahua skeleton that was found.
See, cool. When you're talking about going excavating, do you have to, like, what's the legislation for that? Do you have to get like permits and stuff? And I know speaking news.
No comment. Next.
I'll shut up. No problem.
No. The owner of the vaults that we rent is Norrie Rowan, ex-international rugby player for Scotland. He's the man responsible for digging all the vaults and bringing them all back to how they are now. I've got a great relationship with Norrie. I do maintenance and stuff for our vaults, and I get to do things other people don't get to do, like bits behind walls and stuff. Obviously, I'm not going to get a sledgehammer and start knocking the shit out the walls, because that's just kind of. But certainly, sorry, the wife's still phoning me.
All right, I thought it was a ghost intercepting the stream there.
Yeah, on.
But actually, do us a favour, mate. Do us a favour. Just answer it. Just take the call. Take the call right now. Like, just take the call. Let's take it on the show, and we'll all just watch.
Oh, he's frozen.
He's answered.
I think when he answers, what happens is
it cuts us
stopped.
off. That's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
shame.
Reese,
That's a shame.
we'll go to a quick question here from Reese. He says, "My kid, when she was like 6 months old, would always stare at the corner of the room for like 2 to 3 minutes every day until she got a wee bit bigger. That's called wind."
Nah,
You never know.
Kids. I'm going with kids can see stuff, but we can't. Same with
I'm
animals.
100% with you on that one, Kieran. I think. Have you ever seen these videos of like kids just like talking to random people in their kitchen, just like, "Hey, how are you?" It's like, who are you talking to? I'm talking to the guy with a fucking hole in his head. The kid does not have any comprehension of what a hole in the head means, and you're like, what's going on here, man? I think kids are tapped into stuff that they forget. And
kids are a blank canvas until they're conditioned by the parents. You know, there's no such thing as monsters, no such thing as ghosts. Go back to sleep. You know,
exactly.
Go back to your own bed. You know, so yeah, absolutely. You know,
I seen a video a couple of days ago. I'd seen it before, and then I could never find it again. And it was on a stream of videos I was watching, and it was a set of 3 wee girls in a room, like screaming at a corner of the room, shouting and saying, like, you know, "We're not happy with you. You keep waking me up, and I just want to go to bed," and blah, blah, blah. And eventually the kind of mum comes in, turns the light on, whatever, and she's like, "What are you shouting at?" Whatever. And they all 3 of them at once just go, "The man in the corner." And she's like, "Right, out you come, on."
That's the only reaction to that. I mean,
That's not I don't know how you respond to that.
Genuinely, man, that happened in my house one night. My wee boy came through. We live in a relatively new house. I mean, the house isn't more than 13 years old. Maybe it's pretty new. But my kid was 4 when we moved in here, and he walked through to our bedroom one night and said, "Mummy, why is there a man covered in tomato sauce in the hall?"
Tomato sauce?
It's no tomato sauce, it's relish, son. Get back to bed.
I was like,
just like that. That's your dad and he's pissed. Go back to bed.
Kebab sauce.
No, I was in bed as well. It was if I wasn't in bed and then Mel, if my wife came to me in the morning and said, "Listen, Murray was saying about a guy covered in sauce in the hall," I could be like, what am I like? But I was in bed.
What am I like?
I was in bed, man. Like I'm imagining, like, as soon as he said that, I'm imagining a guy just like covered in blood standing in front of my kid, just like like the ghost of Christmas yet to come.
That's what your missus says.
No, I'm never yet to come.
Oh man, and that took a turn. The vaults, that's something that for the vaults, I've never actually. I always knew Greyfriars as is. Is the vaults under the actual Greyfriars Kirkyard? No. So what is the vaults?
The vaults are part of South Bridge, which is along the other end of Chambers Street from Greyfriars. South Bridge joins on from North Bridge at the Tron Kirk, and it opened up the south side of the city, up Nicholson Street and way up that way. It was basically to span the gap of the Cowgate, basically to open up the south side of the city, when we no longer needed defence walls around Edinburgh and we could actually branch out. So there had been talk for a long time about a bridge to be built across the Cowgate. And that's when South Bridge was, started. Finally, the Act of Parliament was passed, and it started built in 1785.
So
basically, South Bridge is a viaduct bridge. It's a massive viaduct structure, and it's got 19 arches holding it up that you can't see because they're sandwiched in between the buildings on either side. Imagine a straight line with 4 blocks to either side pushed against the arches, and that's what forms the vaults.
I see.
The arches basically that hold the bridge up that are behind the tenement buildings.
And see earlier on when you were saying about the homeless gentleman that fell through the first layer of the mausoleum into the second layer. How deep does Greyfriars go then? How many layers are there?
Oh, loads. I mean, it used to be a sweeping valley that ran, flush right down to the Cowgate. Estimates, there's definitely over 750,000 bodies in Greyfriars. It was the main burial place for Edinburgh for years and years and years.
That replaced St Giles, didn't it?
It did, yeah. St Giles was already getting overflowing, and the bodies were coming out of the ground, slipping down at the Cowgate and things with the way the land is. So yeah, you needed to. It was Mary Queen of Scots that gave the lands in the monastery to the people of Edinburgh to be used as a burial ground.
So what were they doing? Were they like, you bury 6 feet down and then you bury 5 and 9 inches down and then 5 and...
Yeah, I mean, basically they would just get the plots, and then once there was no family left, or the plots had run out, they would just resell the plots. They would just smash the coffins down, and just keep going. They would just smash them down and just keep burying people on top of each other and on top of each other.
That sounds an awful lot like desecration.
Yeah, I suppose it was, but it's they needed the space. There was a lot. Yeah.
It sounds so daft when you say it, but it's like, well, they needed the space. That's it. But you know that's so true of everything. Even today, it's like they'll kick people out of the houses or flats that they've been living in for 15, 20 years to move them to somewhere else. And it's like, oh, what the fuck are you doing that for? Oh, we need the space. It's like, but I've lived here. This is my house. This is my home. And that's a living person. What must a dead person think when somebody comes along? Just like, here, mate, you're fucking out. It can't be a nice thing.
Yeah. But yeah, but again, that's why it's built up as well. There's a lot of landfill used as well to build Greyfriars up now to what you see today. So it is a lot higher than it would have been, and it's a lot more bumpier than it would have been back then, rather than the sweeping valley that it was.
What about the stories of like the mass graves in the corner?
Yeah, down the bottom, at the Grassmarket Gate. Yeah, I mean that's the mass graves of the criminals who were executed. They weren't given obviously proper burials. Obviously, they were missing their heads. They were missing their hands if they were, caught stealing, or murder if they'd strangled, or if they shot somebody or something. So that's where all the criminals were put. James Earl and Martin, his remains is in that big pit down the bottom. Yeah, because they weren't deemed, because they were criminals, they weren't deemed to have a proper burial. And their body wasn't complete. So it couldn't get a proper, burial.
Wow.
C. Matthewman says, is it true that body parts can pop out of the ground when the weather is pish?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it happens all the time. Yesterday, I was with the police in the graveyard. Somebody reported a bone coming out of the ground.
You actually have to involve the police at that point.
If there is obviously legal protocol in place which has to be followed, extremely strictly to the code. At the end of the day, there is laws in place. If a bone is lying on the ground, it can be picked up, bagged and tagged, and then what happens is it gets reburied as close as possible by the council to where it was found, so it gets put back in the ground. If the bone is if it's still covered, or if it's in the ground, or if you have to use force to pull it up, the police need to be informed. It's just a one-on-one call. There's set questions that needs to be asked. The first question is always, is it supposed to be there? Which is always funny. Every time.
Did you put that there?
Yeah. Basically, the police just want to know if there's any scenes of a recent crime, but just bone fragments that come up. So then they either say, right, we're sending somebody out, or they say, I'm quite happy for you to deal with that. So then we get permission to actually remove it. So nobody's walking over it, nobody's standing on it, nobody's crushing it down anymore, which is the main concern, is at the end of the day, that has been a person, and utmost respect has to be maintained for that person at all times, even though it's a fragment bone. Yeah.
So theoretically, right, if I wanted to burn a body and get rid of the bones,
they're never going to go looking in the graveyard. No.
And it'd be like the Shawshank Redemption. See if you just take a walk in the graveyard every day and just drop it out your trouser leg.
I've just realised I've said those sentences with this tash. I'm in trouble.
Yeah, you've basically screwed yourself now.
Craig Matthewman says, "Can you just take it home to the dug?"
No, that would be highly illegal. That would be grave robbing, and I would, you'd look at life imprisonment possibly for that one. Yeah.
Are there still some like old kind of draconian laws about like lifting bones from?
You can only dig a body up on the second Sunday of a Tuesday. Yeah, I mean, laws are still in place because they've not changed. Obviously the bones can't leave. I mean, they have been buried, and to remove them is illegal. To mess with them at all is illegal. But certainly to take them away as a souvenir, no, that's highly breaking the law. Yeah.
Have you ever caught anybody trying to?
I was just gonna ask that.
Well, Jan did. It was Jan that discovered Sonny Devlin.
Jan!
You just outed him.
Kicking George's head around the graveyard. That was Jan that caught the boys doing that. He was the main prosecution witness for the case.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm assuming the head was put back.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Imagine that. I mean, what kind of person do you need to be to? Well, there's a skull. You know what I fancy then? 5 aside. You know what I mean? Like,
well, if I was going to say it depends on the kind of person. There's two ways to look at that. There's the wee arseholes that'll do it, or there's the proper historians that'll look back at Aztecs that used to play sport with human heads.
Yeah, they did actually. Yeah.
So there's two ways to address that one.
Yeah, he was just a wee bag. Yeah.
Aye, yeah, I knew the answer who it was, but you never know. It's nice to play devil's advocate in that one.
J-Mac, you read out this question.
This is from Michaela Manzakova, who happens to be our Kieran.
Hiya.
That guy. That's his wife. So hello, Kieran's wife. You're much more than that. Sorry, but
I'm going to pay for that. Thanks.
You're welcome. Send me the texts. I've heard a few stories of people who had imaginary friends as kids and would describe them to their parents, who would recognize the description and show the kid a pic of the relative that passed, and the kid would say, "Yeah, that's what my friend looks like." Terrifying. Fucking right it is, Michaela. Without putting too fine a point on it. Aye, that's pretty scary shit. But this is, Jamie, again, just we were talking about it earlier. The kids aren't conditioned to think a certain way, so they are going to see what they see, and that's the end of it.
I like the idea of this, that see wherever the other world is when you've passed, they're all kind of coming through. So say it's like a train station, and they're all kind of coming through to come over to the other side to come in, and that watch us comes through and scratches someone right in one of James's tours, right, and walk back in. They're like, "All right, George," and George's like, "Aye, cheers," because they're all fucking blaming me, and I've never even been out there.
see on that kind of basis, like of kids seeing things. Have you ever had a parent bring along kids to a tour?
But they're getting knocked back because we're not kids still. So
no, I do you're not allowed. I'm just curious if anyone's actually decided I want kids to go on this.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, obviously, all the time. I mean, we've got an age restriction of 12. Although I say our tours are not suitable for under 16s. None of our guides are scripted, so a lot of the guides, go with the banter. They have a banter with the group, which obviously a lot of times is adult orientated banter. Especially on a 9 o'clock Saturday tour. It is going to be adult banter. It's not the kids that get offended; it's the parents of the kids that get offended on behalf of the kids. And to eliminate that, that's why I say our tours are not suitable. If they're willing to bring their 12-year-old along, we're certainly not what some class is a family-friendly attraction.
Aye, that's true.
Yeah, we've had people try to turn up with toddlers and pushchairs and everything, and it's just, no. We don't want to be putting that, but yeah, we can't accept any under 12s on the tour anytime, and they will be turned away. Or if the guide believes them to be under 12, then they would be turned away.
Yeah. The vaults. So is there a lot of? We know that Greyfriars Kirkyard has so much going on. There's a lot of different things that's happening there in regards to what was the name of that fella that he was like a laughable poet and he wanted to be so famous, and then
Willie McGonagall.
Yeah. So there's him. There's George Mackenzie. There's a lot of rich history there. We know that about Greyfriars. But what have we got for the vaults? What's the story of the vaults?
I mean, it was just basically. I mean, the structure itself is just an amazing feat of engineering. It's a massive structure.
Look at that! Just look at that photograph, man.
Well, that's one of the arches holding up the bridge. The traffic's going above.
Fantastic.
That's our main vault. With the 3 different levels. Obviously, the floors have come down. But yeah, I mean, it was built originally. All the vaults were formed to make storage and workshops for the businesses that would rent the storage was extra from the shops, and that would pay for the upkeep of the bridge. But due to Scots being tight arses in everything we do, we built this amazing feat of engineering, and basically we never waterproofed the fucker because it was deemed too expensive. We never used puddling clay when we built it because it was deemed too expensive and unnecessary because it never fucking rains in Edinburgh, does it?
Never.
Never. So the bridge was never waterproofed. So from day one, the rain would come and sit on the pavement, in the road, and it would just seep through. And it still does to this day at certain points. It seeps in.
Just look at that. Just look at that photograph, man. That's absolutely spectacular. Has anybody ever filmed inside those vaults for the purposes of a movie or a TV show?
Oh, loads, yeah. Well, Most Haunted were in these vaults as well.
Like outside the paranormal stuff, is it like anybody, maybe a historical drama or horror movie stuff like that? Anybody ever tread their toes in there?
It's mainly been for paranormal shows or TV, shows like that. Mainly used for that. Certainly not for filming locations, as far as I am aware. I could be wrong.
That's actually a shame. That's actually a shame that it's only been used for those shows. Because
we can use it on TV, but there's a lot. Obviously, the water's coming in and stuff like that. So the equipment wise, and and it's obviously the electricity is non-existent. It works, but then it doesn't work, and it's water dripping in. So it could be a nightmare set to work with.
Well, I've got an idea for a short film that we could totally film in there if we can go and get some funding for it. It's about a ghost that gets blamed for cutting and scratching and bashing everybody, and he basically passes through and everything. I mean, that'd be quite a cool story, right?
Let's call him George. That's a good name.
That's a great name, aye.
I'm thinking let's call him fucking Jamie.
I'm only responsible for 312 of the cases, by the
way. See Matthew Man on the go sends in.
Fuck's sake, Craig. Wait, he has done that between the start of this show and this point. Craig has put that together. Thank you very much. That is my idol. That is my man. I love Freddie Mercury. Thank you very much, Craig, for you've just immortalized me as it's that moment in Live Aid. So thank you very much, Craig. You're a fucking legend. And Kevin is going to send you another free T-shirt as a result of that.
I'm still waiting on Heather sending the first free T-shirt that we offered him.
Heather, where the fuck are you?
Not much. She's AFK. So the vaults is part of the tour, then, right? So if you, for someone watching that might be wanting to come along to Scotland or lives in Scotland that has never experienced the City of the Dead tours, without giving too much away, what's your kind of route? I mean, I did see it. I don't know if this is allowed, right? But on YouTube, somebody was like filming.
Yeah, they were filming. That was Jerry. That's Jerry's tour. Yeah, Jerry. The guides don't. I mean, it's not the fact that it's other people in the tour as well. Obviously, they might not want to be filmed or put on film and put on YouTube. We don't allow filming on the tours, just because of that, and all the places as well. And a lot of the places are council owned as well, which again, you would need filming it if you want to upload it to YouTube for your channels and stuff. So a lot of it, but that was a sneaky one. But every guide with us is different. So, we all do the tours our own way. We don't, although obviously Jan owns the tours and he is an author, he doesn't insist that we follow scripts to his exact words. So we all put our own take on things. We all choose what stories to tell. And so we are all the guides are different to each other. So you'll never have the same experience, twice.
That's pretty cool. And does that go? Does it like start off in Greyfriars, go through the vaults, and end up in Mary Queen's Close and that kind of stuff? Or
Mary King's is totally different. That's a different location. That's the street under. Well, there's not under the Royal Mile. It goes away from the Royal Mile, but that's on the Royal Mile. Yeah, that's the one 1645 with the plague and stuff. A lot of people do get confused though with Mary King's and the vaults, because they are both underground. Mary King's is very visual. You have got the old doorways where the vaults are nothing more than storage space. But the history of when people lived there, and the disease that wiped through there as well, although it was 100 odd, almost 200 years after Mary King's.
COVID 1787.
Yeah. The plague doctor masks and stuff. Yeah, so they are very, very different to each other. Absolutely different. Yeah.
Mary McIntyre says, "Go on a tour."
Who is
Jamie, guide.
Who's Mary McIntyre? That's the
my
big
sister.
mystery. That's your sister.
It's my sister. Yeah.
Your sister's a wee legend, man. She's fucking bumming you up on this. Go on tour with James Corstorphine. He's the legend. He is, man. You've given us more than a lot of people, and we really appreciate it. You know what I mean? Like,
just wait till you come to Edinburgh. I'll give you whatever you want for some jelly wings.
No, it's jelly wings.
Yeah. It's actually really entertaining as well on social media when you post, because like you're quite active on social media. Your photos really capture Edinburgh and its dark elements. I always look at your images and I'm like, man, Edinburgh's such a nice place and it's on our doorstep. And as well as that, you're always kind of posting updates of what you kind of see in the graveyard. Also, Greyfriars Bobby. We've not that I ever have. I didn't even know it was a thing, but people need to stop rubbing the nose of the statue, right?
Stop rubbing the Bobby. Poor wee Bobby's red raw, and you know he's got a sore tip because he's been rubbed that much. I mean, seriously, these people, for good luck, right? These people don't believe in fairies for a start. So why the fuck would you go and rub the something that 300 other people have previously touched that day without the plague going around? What possible good luck could that bring you? To then go have a Subway or have a cigarette and have a drink. And you're eating people's shit. Stop rubbing the fucking shit. Please. You idiot. It's idiot. It's really, and it's destroying a Grade A listed monument at the end of the day. We should be preserving it, not destroying it. And people rubbing it, and it's destroying it. Simple as that. It needs to be enforced. But because it's a national Grade A listed monument, there's so much red tape and legislations around it, you can't just change it. You can't just make it higher. You can't just put a fence around it. There is a lot of red tape. People should just stop fucking touching it. Is the easiest and cheapest and best solution.
Yeah. Which is
not
quite
that I feel strongly
serendipitous.
about that at all, by the way. I just want to
He's like, you might not be able to put a fence up around it, but I'll stand near it. By the way, talk about serendipity, but I read today, and correct me if I'm wrong, that it was on this very day.
It was.
Bobby died. What's the chances that we randomly decided to do this show today, and this is the day that he died?
1 in 365, I would imagine.
Touche. How crazy though, right? Talk about crazy stuff.
Yeah, right? 150 years today since the
150, and it's a number like that.
Wow.
So we can officially say that we've done a podcast about Greyfriars on the
the day that Bobby died.
150th anniversary of that.
Mate, that's
the day Bobby was no more. Dies. The day that Bobby dies, otherwise known as marriage.
The day that Bobby dies. Oh la la. God, that's bad. So we're looking forward to the kind of.
Actually, can we just for the sake of decorum, can we just have like even 10-second silence for
the Bobby?
For the Bobby. Let's have 10-second silence for Greyfriars Bobby. And I'm counting it for now, right? We ready? That's 3, 2, 1. Thank you, Bobby.
That was the
longest Bobby session you've ever had, Jamie.
Oh man, we're definitely looking forward to coming out to the vaults. Obviously, we've got a full production crew, and we can do whatever we can do. Essentially, we'd like you to kind of, obviously, you will lead it, but what I imagine that we'll do is come out and kind of make the ultimate. I mean, something that'd be really good for promotional stuff and bits and bobs here, but just something that really captures the fun and hopefully prove or witness any kind of goings on. Now, I know that probably when people go there expecting to see stuff, give us 2 taps and all that, right?
Yeah.
That it's unlikely to happen. So I think what's really cool is if we go in there with an aim for just have you telling some of the history, take us to points where, you know, this is where I found a dead chihuahua on the wall. You know what I mean? These, this is the area where folk are most likely to get smashed. All these kind of things. And then if something happens, it happens. And it might, you know,
Aye,
it could be...
I can see how that one's going to go. So this is where most folk get smashed. So J-Mac, you can wait there.
We'll be back in 10 minutes. And if he's still...
Did anybody bring a chihuahua? No? All right, J-Mac, you wait fucking there or no?
so that'll be pretty cool. We're all all of us will essentially be free at the start of February. Is this something? This is something we should definitely. We can premiere it. Maybe do this again, but do like a 20 minutes intro and then premiere it everywhere on social media and whatnot, and have people tune in live like here, but they'll watch what we've filmed, and that'd be pretty cool.
I'm thinking we bring Jamie back, and we do what we're doing just now, but we bring in clips from what we filmed that night and stuff. You know, it'll be a fucking blast.
The thing is, though,
reaction video.
We'll essentially play the full thing in its entirety as it's released. Yeah,
like a director's cut audio.
Yeah, right. So if we film it,
this is the bit where J-Mac shit his pants for the third time.
I know you can't see it because Kevin Mask.
Oh, fucking third.
But it'd be pretty cool to do that. I know that a lot of people would tune in for that, and then after it finished, we can kind of talk about it in retrospect and all that. We could even bring Jan on to talk about maybe plug some of his books, and even just rate you on your Are you more historically accurate when it comes to Greyfriars than Jan, or is Jan the man?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's a lot more. Evidence for a lot more stuff since the books were written. There's a lot of updated information done, stuff like that. So I don't know if Jan still researches or not but he's busy writing other books and stuff. Mm-hmm. So
have you ever thought about him?
I've asked him this.
I've got the information there for the South Bridge, but it's covering such a vast period. You know, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it properly. So basically, from 1750. I want to do it right up to present day, which is a massive task. The businesses that were there, the businesses that, didn't survive, through the times, and what the buildings have been used for. So, yeah, it's a mammoth task. There's so much information. Yeah.
There's a documentary in the works.
Yeah. There's more than, there's plenty of history in it.
Edinburgh's rich and full of history. And I think it also looks like a place that's straight out of a movie that's about scary stuff.
It's Gotham City, isn't it?
It's I don't know. It depends what kind of daylight it is. Just before we wrap up here, there's one last thing that I wanted to ask you. Have you any experiences that you've had with? And that's the Museum of Childhood Toys. And I read in Jan's in his book, he talks about how there was a nursery under there or in there. And it locked up, and these.
Yeah, I think again. I mean, it was a myth that people were bricked up alive in Mary King's. I mean, Mary King's close tell you that themselves now that people weren't. We've got things like city archives and things, and we've now got the expenditures from the city expenditures from 1645. So we know people were taking food. I think Jan took that from a myth again about that. It was more of a scary story that grandmothers would tell. The Waynes they're walking past in Victorian times. If you don't behave, you get locked up there like the plague victims, as grannies do with the threats. So I think that stems from that. There's certainly no historical documentation to say that. Otherwise, I mean, there's nothing in the press. You imagine children being bricked up alive and the parents try and get them, and they just kind of walked away. All right then. I fucking didn't like it anyway. Fucking ginger. Can I get a new one? There would have been riots. There would have been riots, and there would have been documentation in the press and stuff like that. Even back then, we did have the journals, but. I mean, I'm not going to debunk it, but where it came from, I'm not entirely sure. But it's certainly, I've heard it other places other than Jan who said it. So it was one of these urban legends, I think, that kind of made it into the book. And it's kind of, Whereas I'm more right down. I want to find right through the history of that building. Right down how you research building records. Going right back in the council archives. Right back for that address, and then finding out when new tenements were built, other ones were destroyed, and so.
What have you got in your research?
J-Mac, it's your headphones. It makes you look like you've got a weird haircut. Like when you're looking in the camera there, it looks like you've got like little things that come out the side of your hair, like a wig or something. Like an Oompa cut, but black.
It's my fucking hair.
That's shiny. That's shiny.
Clark Gable. If there's any,
I'm trying to go off fucking old Edinburgh. Like I've got the tash, I've got the side swiped hair. At least I've got hair. Fuck's sake.
Exactly. This wasn't too choice.
We have another submission
what
here
is
from.
What does the B stand for on your cap? Is it
Boston Red Sox?
It's Baldy.
Baldy, yeah.
Baldy.
There's the F news gap.
We have another submission here from from Craig Matthew.
Fucking print screen.
The guy is a wizard. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on again, James, and we'll do more again in the future, especially now that we're doing this paranormal stuff. We'd also like you to come with us when we check out places like the Lark Hall. Have you heard of the Black Lady Lark Hall?
I have. I actually, funny enough, I was reading something about that the other day. Flicking through Facebook, I think it was.
Could have been our podcast, no?
Quite possibly, right? But listen to it. Like you were the first one, eh?
I was on the thing.
Also, by the way, can I just comment on the fact that Kieran, you have managed to make a glass of water look manly as fuck. Do that again. Do that again. That's a stein of water, man. That's fucking impressive. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Matthewman says B for Boltergeist. You should definitely come along with us. I think you would probably serve as the veteran. You know how in a movie there's always one guy that's like got half a leg and the rest it's wood. He's like,
he always dies first. You can't watch.
The Jesse Ventura of the outfit. I think you should definitely come with us because we do plan to do these, because we're starting off this show by doing a lot of the Scottish-based stuff from our doorstep, and we're definitely going to be checking out most of the places that we have an episode with. Now, the Lark Hall, you can just essentially go up there, so we don't really there's no one there that's like, yo, hi, I'm from Lark Hall, come and I'll show you. But you've got the experience of the veteran that knows what what's to look for and stuff, and we're going to do a bit more research on where to find bits and bobs, and we'll go there. And there's the Applebank Inn. I asked them a while ago if they were up for us going up and checking out the haunted pub, but they left me on red, so we might just have to go there anyway.
That comes under.
That's the old Jibber Jabber standard.
No, you can't come. Fuck you, coming in.
But you should definitely come along with us and experience.
I'm not getting involved in this. This could be criminal activity.
Just blame it on J-Mac.
Aye, why the fuck no way?
Blame it on his tash, let alone anything else.
If anything, when we all get lined up against the wall, it's him that is getting put behind bars.
If anybody screenshots me doing that,
screenshots you doing what?
Nothing.
I whined. But so we're really looking forward to hanging out with you in February, and we will make sure to chat a little bit after this to kind of get the stuff sorted with that, and we'll make something really cool of that. Make sure to definitely check out cityofthedeadtours.com. I think even someone said in the comments, I didn't highlight it though, that they'd you'll be getting a couple new people on the tour after watching this, which is pretty cool. That's always the aim of the and hey, Jan sold some books. J-Mac looks like Borat at class, just to finish it.
Yeah,
you can check this show out on Spotify and everywhere after the fact. And we're really looking forward to February, where we'll get together and do some crazy stuff. But for the meantime, keep it scary, and we look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. Where the next episode, and get this, James, you'll need to tune in for this one. We're going to have a medium on. Still getting a couple of details right now, but there's a medium coming on. Right. And we're going to quiz him and ask him about his life as a medium and how it works. And, you know, does he just go and put the kettle on and there's somebody sitting there like, ah! he's like, how's it go? You want a cuppa? Or does it work? You know, I've never actually sat down and had the chance to speak to him. And all you guys get to do it in the comments section as well, where you get to really, the guy has so many people following him. He has a lot of people that will swear by he's the real deal, right? So all credibility, he seems to be the real deal. So it's not, you know, come on and we'll badger you, or come on and we'll ask you to tell us about us, but just more, how did it start? How did you know? How did you get there? How did you make it better? How did you grow this talent or gift that you have? So I'm not going to.
I'm not going to lie. I might do a bit of that because I am the heel, and I'm going to jump in there. I'm going to ask the awkward questions, but I'm sure he's going to have answers for them. So I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely.
The thing is, if he's that good, J-Mac, he'll already know the question.
He'll know, and he's very credible as well. He's also from the UK, so it'd be interesting to see if he could come and see if it is actually George Bloody Mackenzie, or if it's just wee Rab wearing his Burberry socks and a cap. Imagine that this whole time. This whole time. Steve Mattheman says, cracking show, lads. As always, lads, keep Tash. I think there's a free t-shirt coming there with the hashtag keep Tash.
I'm actually going to keep this now. This is at least because of this podcast, I'm keeping this Tash for one more day. One more day. And if anybody wants me to keep it longer, just like and subscribe and all that shit.
I think that's the best plug you've ever done, mate. Absolutely. Right, guys. Thanks very much. Again, thanks, Jamie. You guys can follow him at City of the Dead Tours, and we will catch you guys on the flip side. Take it easy, guys.
Thank you for listening to Paranormal Pattern with Kev, J-Mac and Kieran, in association with Jibber Jabber Podcast. You can watch future episodes live on Facebook Live and on YouTube. You can also catch up on our previous episodes on Apple Podcasts, Audible, Spotify, and any available podcast database. Don't forget to check out our website at www.jibberjabberpodcast.com. Good night and sleep tight.